here again.
Hello. Yep, we're back with another senior verse, and we're here with
Kyler.
and he has an awesome verse, and if you want to, go ahead and read it.
Okay. Psalms 144:1. Blessed be the Lord, my rock, who trains my hands for battle and my fingers for warfare.
That's a cool one, and one you don't really always think of and
No.
go to. But
I read it and I told him just before when we were talking, I said, do you realize how powerful that verse really is? It is powerful.
And I said I originally chose it because it sounded cool.
That sounds very cool.
But yeah,
So,
once you look into it, it's definitely a lot cooler.
Yeah. So what made it so cool to you?
I just like war. That was the first intention. Like the battling part was cool. But once you like look more into it, there's more. It's like 3 lines, and there's so much to be told about like God and like what He does or what He should do for us, as in like what we need to do to get there. So like David always prayed. By the sounds of this, he praised God for every battle and everything he went through, because he knew he couldn't have gotten there without Him. And so there's something to be said about that.
Yeah. There is, because the verses before, that's what he was doing. He was like mourning and sorrowful, and going through all the paces of everything that had happened, and then all of a sudden there it is. And I love the first part of it. Read that first part again.
Blessed be the Lord, my rock.
He's definitely mentioned a lot as being the rock, of being the fortress, being the cornerstone that the builders have thrown away, but he's our foundation that we can build on. He isn't shifting like the sands.
Right. Yeah. And the Lord, my Lord, I think he says, right? My Lord. And there's the Lord. That's right, because it's not it's the Lord, right? The Lord, because that is very special. The Lord, because it's in all capital letters, and it's God's divine name is kind of how it was defined, and we can say that as
Yahweh.
Yahweh.
And what does that mean? Or what is the action there?
The old way of saying was Yahweh, as in like Yah is like a first breath you take in, and then way is like what it sounds like to breathe out. So the name for Yahweh was in every breath that everybody had. So it was a very powerful name that they used to describe somebody that they felt was that important, that God was the reason they were breathing. That so much so that his name was just their breath alone.
Yeah.
Like Yahweh.
Yeah, going all the way back to Adam, he breathed life into him.
That's right.
And so now we have continually his breath in our lungs. Yeah. And now my brain is thinking that song.
I know that song. I was doing the same thing. I was going to say, are we going to mention that song?
Yeah, it's your breath in our lungs.
Yeah, it's your breath.
But yeah, so you talked about why, but like, has this verse changed you or changed how you approached anything?
It's definitely made me like praise God for everything. Like, because you think like, oh, you only praise God for like when somebody's healed of like a sickness, or like when somebody like gets out of a bad car accident, or like you get a lot of money or something like that. Like, it's the thing of like, oh, you praise God when something really good happens. But like David had a lot of things that he went through that were bad that he also praised God for. Because like you don't see it now, and even though it sucks now, eventually God has some kind of plan for it. And it's something that as I went through this past year, I got a lot more thankful for. Of like, even though sometimes something would happen, I'd be like, dang, I really wish that hadn't happened. My brain always goes back to like, well, God has a purpose for everything. And like I don't always like saying it. I would much rather have a good thing happen, but it's also like I don't get as upset anymore as I used to, because I know eventually this is going to be something good. Or it's even if it's not this thing, this experience, even if it was bad, even though it may never turn out to be something good per se, like it doesn't just flip your thing, like your fate, or your not fate, but like your fortune. You could use that experience further down the line to help connect with somebody else, because they went through the same thing, and they feel like nobody's ever gone through it. Which is why I think Oh no, I'm skipping ahead. Sorry.
That's okay.
No, you're
That's
good.
okay. I wanted to throw that verse in there that talks about he uses those things for good. And you got to add on to that, for those who love the Lord.
Yes.
And as a youth, and I guess I have to say as a grandmother, I have seen you love the Lord. And that is a over the top feeling to see your, to be able to say that. Because that's what you just said. It's, he does it for a purpose. He uses that purpose for good for those who love him.
Yeah.
So,
and like you were saying, like, even though you're upset at the situation, and that's okay to be upset, but don't stay in that upset and realize that, okay, God, I'm just going to give it to you, and turning it over to him is the most important part for sure.
It is.
Because, like you said, otherwise it, like, eats at you, and you just kind of, like, get bitter towards the situation or the person, and that's not what we're called to do. So,
yeah.
But anyways, so how can you use this verse to point others to Jesus?
Well, I think of it as, like, the preparation thing. Like, go back to, that's why I was skipping ahead to.
Yeah.
Like, the whole, it's hard to see the good in situations, but Jesus is our best way to prepare for things, because Jesus is the only one who came down from heaven, and even though he was us, like, he was a human person, lived an entire 30 years before anybody even knew about him, like, in the Bible, he went through a lot of the same things that we went through. Yeah. But the difference is he never actually sinned or never went against what God said. Mm-hmm. So the fact that we have somebody who could train us because they have, not only because they have the knowledge, because, like, when you go into, like, a war situation nowadays, a lot of the times the people that have the most respect in, like, a military are the people who have been in it the longest. Mm-hmm. So, like, enlisted people aren't technically higher than, like, officers, because officers have, like, college degrees. But a lot of times people will trust more of the enlisted people that have been in it for more, like 20 years, than they will an officer that just came in.
Because they've been in
battle.
Because
experience, they've been in battle before.
It,
it's easier to say, oh, this is how we should do it because I've done it before.
Yeah.
So it's like, it comes back to the, why would I not listen to God? God's been through it all. Like, there's no reason for me to try and figure it out on my own when I have a cheat sheet.
It's true.
Why would I try so hard to fix it my own way when I can just
go look in
trust
the Word,
in
right?
somebody who's done it before?
That's true.
No,
That's true. That's true. One other question I had, because we kind of talked about it before, is the hand. Talking about the hand and the fingers that, he trained him. He trained my hands, and then he what was the other word? I can't remember what it was.
He trains my hands for battle and my fingers for warfare.
My fingers for warfare.
Yeah.
And I thought we had a good, interesting, because train means teaching. Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah, same thing. And but I just thought that was an interesting conversation that we were having about hands and the fingers and kind of.
Because we were talking about it, because we were trying to figure out, like, what the difference between warfare and battle was. And then, so we were sitting there and we were having a good discussion.
We were having
a good
discussion. It was a good discussion.
And the longer we sat there, it clicked that it was like, oh, battle and warfare are two different types. Because, like, you can have a battle in a war, but the actual warfare is everything that goes into that battle.
Yeah.
So, like, when David says, trains my hands for battle, he's saying that God prepared him to fight, like, the Philistines or any of his enemies against his kingdom. Mm-hmm. But, like, in the actual hand-to-hand, like, sword, shield, combat. But the fingers for warfare is more of, like, a commanding position of, like, planning out where they're going to attack from, how they're going to get supplies here or there, what castle they want to breach, stuff like that. The planning part. So, David made sure to point out that every part of his war he gave praise to God for, because God prepared him for those parts of the war.
And we can just go back and say he prepared him before he was in this spot.
Yeah.
Because mine used the title as a king's prayer. And so he was prepared way before that, out when he was out there as a shepherd, and was protecting the sheep. Yeah. So all of that was preparation, like you've been talking about for.
Yeah, because we talked about before the cameras rolled.
Yeah.
We talked about how if David had been anything but a shepherd, Goliath may have taken him out a little faster. Because, like, the whole idea was, if a soldier had come down to fight Goliath, Goliath would have fought the soldier and won. But, and it would have been, the fact that he was a shepherd even added to that, because he was learned to fight with a sling and less of, like, war, like hand-to-hand combat.
That's right.
Because if David would have fought Goliath hand-to-hand combat, I'm sure God would have let him win, because that's what he wanted to. But it would have been an interesting battle.
Yeah.
But the fact that God made him a shepherd that was trained with a sling made it to where he didn't even have to actually touch Goliath to take him out. But it was also the fact of when David came down from the mountain, Goliath didn't immediately attack him, because he was like, who are these people sending at me? This little boy that has no armor whatsoever and his little leather sling, like, with his 5 rocks. Like, he just made fun of him because he thought that they were just, like, basically giving up. And then David, it gave David enough time to actually, you know, put a rock in his sling. Because if you were to see somebody you were, like, in the middle of combat with, put a weapon, like, ready to go, you would just lunge at them.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to get hit, obviously. But the fact that he was, like, underestimating David gave David the opportunity to actually sling the rock
and to prepare.
Take him out.
Yeah.
And
that's
I think
what,
I think that goes back to, like, what you were saying of, you know, you need to be going to God and thanking God for everything, even through that planning process, that forging of through the fire that we get to have. Like, God may use us only for, like, 5 minutes, but he prepares us for a lifetime.
Yeah.
Like, through our lifetime, he prepares us. So, and without that plan, without that forging in the fire, we would fall apart. We would have chaos.
Can you look back, Jen, at your life too, maybe how he's done that to prepare you for where you are today? I mean, I can look back on my work life too, and my education, all of that, look back and see. So, you know.
Yeah, and it definitely, like, hits you in the face. It's like, this is why I happen to have this. And not everything in your life, like, you know, will obviously make sense all at one time. But sometimes pieces will fall into place, and you're like, okay, this is why I went through those things, why I made sure I turned to God through those things, so that I can show other people.
And not turn our back on him. Keep that rock, as he says, that rock, that foundation. Yes.
There's also something to point back of, like, the preparation of, like, why David ended up getting 5 rocks instead of 1. Like, David never questioned God's ability to take Goliath out in 1. The whole point of the other rocks were for Goliath's brothers, or was it his brothers? I think it was his brothers. It was somebody. There were others that would have attacked David once he killed Goliath. So David had prepared beforehand, knowing that there was going to be a bigger battle than Goliath.
Right. Yeah.
So
the shock and awe was not going to last forever, right?
The Philistines would have been like, and then they would have just won it. Like, there was no intention of either side being able to, like, the whole deal was, we'll send one guy down. Whoever wins, the other people are slaves. Yeah. Nobody had any intention of ever becoming a slave. Yeah. So they knew there was going to be a battle after the fact.
Yeah.
It was more of God wanted to put David on a platform to where he could say, I didn't do this without the Lord.
Absolutely.
And so the one-on-one battle was that, and then of course the battle ensued afterward, which God's people ended up winning because of that platform.
Yeah.
So to sum this all up, how would you sum up your verse, and, like, something that, a word or phrase that you can just kind of pull and just be reminded, like, of everything that this verse means to you?
I think preparation is probably the best word, because it's just the one I've said the most throughout, and it's the one that best describes why, like, David would give praise, or, like, why, because God trained and prepared him for everything that was going to come to him.
Yeah, yes, he did. And we can see that preparation for you as well, because we've watched you grow from a young child to a young man, and seeing your steps and your walks with your faith, and it's exciting to see what God's gonna do. Yeah. That's right.
That's true. All right. Well, thank you so much for being
here
and talking
with us. I'm excited. Yeah. So I guess we can say, see you later, guys, and we'll catch you the next time.
Bye.
Bye.